Good morning and welcome to Talkback on 4CRB this morning, and we have as our guest Ray Stevens, the member for Mermaid, and welcome. You blew in on the Shirt Tales of Alfred, I suppose, Ray.
Thanks, Russ. Good morning, listeners. Yes, it's been a very trying time for the Gold Coast, but as we found out, it was a lot softer than what it could have been. So it's Mother Nature at her best, I suppose.
Worst.
Well, no, she's a lot worse than that, Russ.
It could be, yes, indeed, as
right.
folks in North Queensland know, yes.
And they're copying it again last night, as I understand.
And I would imagine that your office has had plenty of inquiries from people along that beachfront area concerning things like grants that might be available to help them.
Correct. And look, it's the government has recognised that the Gold Coast is one of the hard-hit areas, along with many other areas of Queensland, of course, and have made some grants available to help people that have been affected badly by by Cyclone Alfred. Obviously, Energex have done a great job getting people back, even though I believe there was some out for 10 and 12 days, which was quite disappointing. But that's what happens when you get a lot of these big trees falling down on power wires, etc. So I believe there's a $15 million community relief fund available for people affected, and there are grants, I think, up to $5,000 available for individuals on the matter. For businesses that have been seriously affected, I think there's grants up to $250,000 available, and certainly we've opened up hubs. There's one at Nerang Bicentennial Centre that I visited that people have been able to utilise, and I think on personal hardship grants they're up to immediately for food and things like that. There's $1,000 for people that qualify for those sort of grants. So the government has recognised the damage that Cyclone Alfred has done to communities affected by the very, very heavy rains and strong winds, and have moved to make sure that, as best we can, that people affected have some capacity to have reparation.
Could be listening to us some people who may have had difficulty or find it difficult to tap into those grants and that sort of thing, and we would welcome calls, of course, on these matters while we have Ray with us. The number is 55208888, 55208888, and of course we welcome questions and comments about anything else that's going on in the state.
Absolutely, Russ. Open to talk about state government matters, and I'll even touch on council matters if required.
55208888 is the number. While we're talking about aftermath of Alfred, the Premier suggested that Canberra may care to chip in on beach renewal with the rock wall up at Narrow Neck. What chances do you think we've got?
Probably fairly slim in terms of they've just taken I believe $2.4 billion away from us. The Labor federal government has taken away from us on our GST funding and given it to some of the other states that are more heavily populated, which is pretty disappointing because we are very much a growth state and very much a state that's affected by natural disasters, whether rain, floods, fires, etc. So that's very disappointing that with all the growth that we've had in population, that the federal government has decided to shortchange us out of the GST, which is the revenue collected that all goes back to the states in a certain carve-up, and they've walked away from that original carve-up of monies and taken $2.4 billion out of the Queensland budget when it's going to be a very tough budget for us this year to bring in a reasonable fashion.
Getting back to post-Alfred and the possible help that may be available for people, there have been reports this morning of 63,000 claims for insurance policies, and people seem to be quite well pleased with their response. Has there been a special effort placed on a compassionate response? Sometimes people feel that contacting the powers that be is a bit mind-boggling and not quite as warm as could be expected.
Well, I get that, and I know that the ministers involved, and there are several from different portfolios involved, have stressed to the insurance people, the heads of the insurance companies, that, hey, this is a very, very disastrous time for a lot of Queenslanders and you have to treat them appropriately. And I think that's probably why that there has been a general good reception from insurance companies to claimants when they've gone in, because they're now starting to understand the gravity of these events. And we're paying enormous insurance premiums right across the board for this cover, and there are some people that can't even get insurance because it's uninsurable in the areas that they live. So for the insurance companies to play ball, as it were, is a very important factor, and I know the ministers have stressed that to the insurance companies, from a state government point of view.
55208888 for you to have your say while we're talking with Ray Stevens in Talkback on 4CRB today. Has Alfred blown you off course in your 100-day reviews and that sort of thing? No. The Olympics and Stage 4 and that sort of thing?
The 100-day review has been achieved, if you like, in terms of what we promised for the 100 days was all delivered. We put some legislation through, a productivity commission. We are going to get infrastructure building at a cheaper rate. I don't know if anyone saw that show on the television on Sunday about the CFMEU in Melbourne. Well, if it's happening in Melbourne, the gangsters, Mick Gatto and all that crew are running the show in Melbourne with the CFMEU, then obviously the same thing is going on here. So that productivity bill, which came through as part of our 100-day promise, is in place now, and we'll make sure that we get the right product for Queensland for infrastructure at the right price. So everything we promised, and the new laws, and we started with the crime laws, obviously. There's more to do on the crime laws, and actually crimes that have been committed. What people don't realise, crimes that have been committed previously to our new laws passing late last year will be dealt under the old Labor government laws, which were very soft on crime. So there's going to be quite a bit of catch-up from those kids particularly that were charged, last year before we came into government. They go through under the old laws. So the new laws will be applying for those criminals that commit a crime now. They will be charged under the new tough on crime law.
Yes, there's been a little impatience about when are these laws going to take hold, and that's the answer.
And when you get a new government, you say, right, fix it, and we are going to fix it, but because the judiciary is separate from the politicians by order of our system, rule of law system, then the judiciary still have control of the sentencing. So what we have done is put in new legislation that the judiciary can follow now, and we are assured that that will improve the situation in relation to bail jumpers and repeat offenders, etc., being let out and just acting without consequence. Now they will get some good serious consequences.
Any personal reaction to some of the media stories about how the Premier will now have to backflip on a promise because the report says the best way to handle Stage 4 or the Olympic stadiums and that sort of thing? It seems a little, short vision.
Well, I hate to... Politicians' promises are not the most respected things in the community. And the reality is, I think, when he said, no, I don't believe that we should have a new stadium prior to the election, was the fact that, that his priority was back then was to, put money into housing and health systems and all those issues that cost of living, all those issues and crime, all those issues that needed addressing. So that's why he said, no, I'm not into spending a whole heap of money on a brand new stadium. The reality is we cannot run the Kmart Olympics. We have to run a world spectacular, because the eyes of the world, just like they were in Paris, will be on Brisbane and the Gold Coast and other areas of Queensland. So, the fact of the matter is, whatever comes out, we committed to under the 100 days to get a professional mob with experience in to say, what should we do, and let the politicians out of the picture. And I'll be disappointed if we don't follow to the T what the recommendation is. And I haven't seen it. It's down and due on the 25th of March. A few of the media people are saying they've got hold of it, which is interesting. I don't know how they did, unless someone from the troops that actually were doing the review leaked it, because we as a government haven't seen the the proposals yet that they are doing, but there is a commitment to do what is in the recommendation from the experts, and I'm sure that will follow on. For my part, whatever it takes to do a international job has to be done. Oh, we've got a call.
Right.
John.
Just a tick. I'll press the appropriate button, and there's John for you.
Good morning, John.
Morning, Ray. How are you?
Good, mate. Good. Yourself?
Good, Ray. I'm just ringing. My wife of 50 years passed away, and I have a room full of spectacular clothing, different sizes. Is there any where that is taking clothing for the people that have lost everything?
Oh, John, that's a wonderful gesture, and I thank you for that. All of the groups, the Vinnies and Salvos, all of those people have been inundated with help. You can approach any of those with your wife's clothing, and I'm sure that they'll be more than happy to assist with that.
Well, it's a whole room of clothes.
Okay, well, hopefully one of them will come and pick it up for you. That'll be even better.
Yes, I don't live on the Gold Coast, Ray. I live at Eden's Landing, which is
I know Eden's
halfway.
Landing well. I know Station Road,
Yeah.
Eden's Landing.
Yeah, we used to be part of the Gold Coast, but someone gave it away.
You were part of the Albert Shire, my wonderful Albert Shire there, John, and I remember it very favourably. I remember it when the station got put in. That's how far back I go with Eden's Landing.
Well, we still were part of the Gold Coast when the two councils amalgamated.
Correct, and that was the worst decision that Terry McEnroth ever made, the Labor government.
Well, the worst decision ever made was for us to be annexed to Logan.
I'm not commenting on that, John. I'll leave you to that one.
No, well, it was just given away, that's all.
Yeah. Anyway, John, that is a wonderful gesture, really appreciated, and I'm sure that all your good wife's clothes will be put to great use.
Thanks for your call, John. 55208888. If, like John, you'd make the comment while Ray is with us here, talking about state matters. Ray, as a local member and in an area right along the beachfront.
Mermaid Beach, beautiful,
yeah.
Yep.
Would I be correct in saying that maybe you're getting some flack from your constituents about the view tax?
Yes, Russ, I certainly am. Obviously, it's a council matter, and I have no, imprimatur whatsoever over the view tax that the Gold Coast City Council is proposing to charge, or is charging, apparently. So, but in my personal view, I think the tax in itself could very well be illegal. It first started with Mayor Ron Clark, when he had some advice from Melbourne that they were doing a view tax down there. He put it on. I'm very well aware of this because I was actually working for him at that stage. Mm-hmm. They put it on from the fourth floor up, a view tax. I think the current mayor sort of campaigned a little bit against it when he got elected in 2012. But
right.
The view tax is the tax that we pay in rates is generated and worked out on under the Local Government Act of Queensland, as I understand it, on the value of the property, the unimproved value of the land that the rateable price is on. So if you've got a 600 square metre block, for instance, a normal house block, then you work out your rating on that 600 square metre block. So if you've got a beachfront block, for instance, with a high rise on it, say it's worth $40 million as a beachfront, big 2 acres on the beachfront. That's split up between all the tenants, maybe 40, maybe 100 on that particular block. So that, and the taxation on the block, which is your rates, is worked out on all of the units on that particular block and divided. Okay, so they all pay a similar rate. But what is proposed by this view tax is everybody above the fifth floor on these things will pay extra. Now, that's, but what they're not doing is saying everybody on the fifth floor below will pay less because the other ones are paying more, because you still must get to the same value on the property as a whole.
Well, what, double dipping?
So it's double dipping and without reducing the ones below. So that's the problem with the view tax. It's an extra grab, if you like, for extra funds to go to our wonderful bureaucrats to spend at the Gold Coast City Council. And I think it's ultra vires the Queensland Local Government Act, but that's a matter for others to determine. Certainly it's a council matter, and I hope something comes of it when it's closely looked at.
And folks are unhappy in your part of the world?
Very much so. No one can understand the reason behind a so-called view tax because, it just doesn't make sense that, has the person on the fourth floor got a better view, fifth floor got a better view than the person on the fourth floor? What about the people on Skyline Terrace? What sort of view do they have? A beautiful view across the ocean. Now, the Mayor has said it's not a view tax, it's just a tax on property values because you're higher, you get more money. That's not necessarily the case, in terms of, some other properties on lower areas, for instance, have a wider type of area and because of that they're worth more money. So, I think the view tax was a silly thing for Gold Coast City Council to do, but it's not my remit, of course, in state government, and I hope sanity prevails when the councillors re-look at that proposal.
So that's the current situation, that has yet to be decided, and they may be responsive to comments such as yours and those that have been coming across your desk.
Well, I hope so. I mean, it is a council decision, and but I hope sanity prevails on the matter, and the fact that the Mayor's saying that it's 4% of the council revenue, if you like, it'll have to be passed on to other people. Well, basically what 75%, as I recall, are on the minimum general rate, and that's what works. So it'll be just spread across the whole of the city. That would be 96% of the population sharing that smallish load. In other words, what they should do is look for council spending, which might be seen as being over the top in some areas.
Can we touch on the relationship between the two tiers of government? Because Gold Coast City seems to be currently relying on the good graces of the state government to help fund beach replenishment, for example. There are some other matters that they're hoping to work in tandem with the state, like the development of the Coomera connector and the extension roads there. They might want to have them revised to status of state road rather than the Gold Coast footing the bill. So
state footing the bill for that one.
For the connector,
yeah.
Yes, but the council's worried about what's going to happen on Helensvale Road, which they'll need to double when all the cars come off the connector, and they're thinking that it should be raised to a state level. So they're looking for some good support from the state. So they wouldn't want to ruffle your feathers too much over the view tax, would they?
No. Well, look, it's not my feathers that they're ruffling. The bottom line is, with those sort of matters, like Helensvale Road, for instance, always will be a council responsibility. So the state doesn't get involved in those responsibilities, and unfortunately, one of the things a lot of years ago, the Gold Coast City Council was put part of the Gold Coast Highway back into council control. So as soon as it goes back into council control, the state doesn't put money into it. Now, the trick is, for every state road, you make sure that it stays a state government responsibility for funding. So, all the roads that we have that are state control, like the rest of the Gold Coast Highway, the M1, all those sorts of roads, the Bermuda Street, for instance, all state roads. So you've got to make sure that they stay, that we keep the separation there. So in terms of the Coomera connector, it's an absolutely vital part of the growth of that particular area. I would like to see it go further, as it should have done from many, many years ago. There was a road planned there years ago, where it actually got scrubbed off one of the Albertshire maps and should never have been taken off the Albertshire maps because the city never stops growing. And because we have such beautiful climate and geography, and all of those factors and the infrastructure that we have that come with those wonderful selling points make it a magnet for people to move here. It's what they call Sunbelt growth, and it's happened all around the world. south of Spain, if you like, Florida in America or wherever. So the growth on the Gold Coast is not going to stop. But what we've got to do is accurately plan for that growth and not make it into Sardine City, make it into still a very pleasant place to live. So traffic is obviously, we don't want to create traffic problems, gridlock, if you like, on our roads, because basically, there isn't a lot of room to move in a 42-kilometre linear city. So that's the beachfront side of it. What we have to do is make sure we plan for appropriate growth. And I think, for instance, the cane lands, 10,000 hectares of lands, and the cane lands should be the focus of the new area for growth in the city. 50,000 people can be accommodated in that particular area.
5 minutes remaining in the program for you to get in and have a chat with Ray while he's here. 55208888 is the number. Ray, can we bring you right back to home base and that linear strip that's Mermaid Beach? How are things going there vis-a-vis the relationship between local businesses and residents and the work of the Stage 3?
Yeah, the light rail has been terribly disruptive for both residents and businesses alike. Some have closed down and gone out of business. It's been quite tragic, really, in terms of, and it has done through Surface Southport, those particular areas. But they're getting on their way with it now, and they tell me, the construction people tell me, that around the middle of this year we'll have the trams actually test-driven along the route, and probably open for business early next year in 26. So, but the Alfred put it back another week and a half, whatever time it took for Alfred to wreak its destruction, and it is a major issue, traffic issue, and unfortunately there have been some between the constructing company and some of the residents, some very unfortunate longer-term issues that have taken quite a bit for the G-Rail people to sort out. So they are responding to those, but you've got the constructing entity separate to the G-Rail entity, which is separate again to the state government who's in charge of the project, the Department of Transport and Main Road. So there are issues there. At one stage they wanted to close the road completely, the Gold Coast Highway, which the local member for Mermaid Beach, aka me, just totally rejected, and they worked a solution around it to make sure that it wasn't closed through the nighttime processes. So, the Gold Coast Highway is one of our few north-south links, and to have that closed, in my view, was going to be just terrible, and all the traffic would have been diverted through my local suburbs, which was, again, not fair and responsible planning for the suburban people that were out there. So it's been a very difficult project. It'll be interesting, as I've said. I don't believe it'll go past Burleigh. I can't see any federal funding coming from the Albanese Labor government for State Light Rail 4, and without federal funding, Light Rail 4 will not be built. Their commitment was 55%. Currently it's $7 billion for Light Rail 4. That's a current estimate, which goes up, pretty well every day, particularly if the federal Labor government have anything to do with it. Then, it's a very tall ask for them to put that amount of money into that Stage 4.
Just before we wrap up the show today, Ray, after disasters, I always get a bit fearful that some folks, while the apparatus is set up for people to get relief and help in their crisis, they fall through the cracks because of a reluctance or even scary business of making applications for things. What's your advice to
my advice is get out to the Nerang Bicentennial Community Centre, where a hub has been set up to handle those people that are unsure on how to progress matters. It's a very friendly place, very friendly staff out there to help. When I visited, there were people operating their computers and things like that where they were offline elsewhere. They're just very, very helpful out there, and they'll help anybody with their applications, their assistance, their packages, if you like, to go forward. So the Nerang Bicentennial Community Centre is the place for anybody and everybody to go for assistance from the state government.
So no one misses out, we hope.
So no one misses out, we hope.
Thanks indeed for your time, Ray.
Thanks, Russ. Always a pleasure.
Always good to have a chat with you and welcome you back next time. And a reminder to listeners that the program can be available on our 4CRB website almost as soon as it ends. Thanks, Ray.
Russ. See you soon.